Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Matt Ehrenreich and I work for an investment firm in Vancouver called Richardson GMP. And I'm really excited to come in today and talk to you guys. This is the 9th semester in a row that I've come in and presented my stock market challenge to Chilliwack Senior Secondary School. And it looks like we're going to have 4 classes participating this semester, so about 80 students. And that means around 700 students have now come through the program and learned the basics of investing in the stock market. So you guys are going to get $100,000 each in play money, of course, and you're going to get to buy and sell stocks over the course of the semester in an attempt to make some money and compete against your classmates, have a little bit of fun, and hopefully learn a thing or two. So just a little bit of a background on me. I grew up in Abbotsford, and I went to Robert Bateman Secondary School. And I was really interested in math and sciences, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do after high school. So I enrolled in the engineering program at University of the Fraser Valley. I did that for a year, but I found out it wasn't really for me. So I switched into the business program, and 4 years later, I got my business degree. And I was really interested in it, but I wasn't sure what kind of jobs there were out there still, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I took a job at a local bank, Scotiabank, through a friend of mine, and I worked there for 6 months and learned the ins and outs of banking. But again, it wasn't really my passion. So I saw a job opportunity at an investment firm here in Chilliwack called Odlum Brown Limited. And I interviewed for the job, and I got the job, and I worked out here in Chilliwack for the next 3 years. And my passion for investing grew. It was a great place to work. And then about a year and a half ago, I transitioned to Vancouver to a larger firm where I now am. And so now here I am, and I'm on a team of 4. And basically what we do is we help our clients achieve their financial goals. That's really what it's all about. And people may have different financial goals. Some of our clients want to save for the purchase of a home. Others want to help pay for their children's post-secondary education. University is very expensive these days. A common goal that most of them have is to achieve financial independence. It's a very common goal. So people want, after 30, 40, 50 years of hard work in their career, they want to be able to retire and not have to worry about money anymore. They want to be able to go on vacations, purchase the home they want, maybe treat their kids, their grandkids. They don't want to have to worry about money. That's a common goal. And other people have a further goal still, to save even more money that when they pass away, they can pass the money down to future generations. So it's really exciting because there's all these different goals that clients have, and we get to help them achieve their goals. So that's what's really interesting about the field. Can I see a show of hands in here who is a good saver? Are any of you good savers of money? Okay, a couple of you, good. And anyone here a good spender? Lots of you good spenders, good, okay. Well, if there's one thing that I'd like you to make sure you take away from me coming in and talking to you, it's the importance of saving and beginning to save now at your age. I always like to say our future selves will thank us for the decisions we make now. So 30 years from now, when you're 50 years old or whatever, you're going to look back at some of the habits and the decisions that you made now, and those are going to become the building blocks of who you become. So if you start saving now at a young age, you're going to probably have those habits later on in life. I run into people who are 50, 60 years old, and they're thinking about retirement, but they haven't started saving yet, and they're stressed about it. So the main thing I want you to remember is thinking about beginning to save now. And I have a good example for you guys here on something called compound interest and the importance of saving early. So can I see a hand again for someone who is a good saver that wants to volunteer their name? What's your name? No? What's your name?
Jamal.
Jamal? J-A-M-A-L?
Yes.
Okay, we got Jamal over here. And someone who's a good spender. Who is a good spender here? What's your name? Matt. Matt, yes. Okay, I remember. So Matt's our spender, just for this example. So in the example, Jamal, at age 19, Jamal saves $2,000, okay? He invests it and it grows it at 12%. Now 12% is a little bit unrealistic. Over the last 120 years, the stock market has grown an average of 9% a year. 12% is a little unrealistic, but we're going to use it for the sake of this example. So his $2,000, he grows at 12%, and he ends up at the end of the year with $2,240. He adds another $2,000 in savings and grows that whole amount at 12% and ends up with $4,749. Adds another $2,000 and on, keeps growing it each year at 12%. Meanwhile, Matt over here spends for the first 8 years and enjoys his life. Doesn't think about saving. Then at age 27, he looks across at Jamal, and Jamal has around $30,000, and he says, hey, I better start saving. So he starts to save $2,000 a year, and he saves for the next 34 years. So he actually saves $68,000 of his own money over 34 years and grows it at 12%. So you can see to 2240 and the same numbers as it begins. Jamal only saved $16,000 and then he stopped. So he only saved this amount over 8 years. You'd be surprised to see that at the age of 60, Jamal actually has more money, even though he saved far less, because he started so much earlier. And that's the power of compound interest. Picture it like a snowball rolling down a hill. So it's small at first, but then it gathers snow and it gathers speed and momentum. And by the bottom of the hill, it's rolling and it's this huge snowball. And that's the effect of compound interest. You don't notice it a lot in the early ages, but in the end here, the amounts become so much more sizable that it grows. Imagine if you have $1 million and you grow it at 10% for a year, you just made $100,000. Whereas someone over here with $1,000 that grows it at 10% only makes $100. They both earn the same amount, but by having more, you can make more. So for people like you and I who don't necessarily have a lot of money at a young age, it takes us saving at this early age to build up a large amount, and then that large amount in those final years will accumulate so much more. So it really does take this extra time beginning early. It's very important to remember this. So there's a good quote by Ben Franklin, who is President of the United States. He says, money makes money, and the money makes more money. And Albert Einstein said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And basically what he's saying is if you understand it, then you can earn it. If you understand that if you save early and grow your money, you can earn it. And if you don't understand it, you'll pay it. So people who get caught in credit card debt, basically when you rack up credit card debt and you don't pay it, the interest continues to accumulate and compound. So you actually pay way more than you should. So compound interest can work for you or against you. And he also said, what else did he say? He said, it's the most powerful force in the universe, compound interest, Albert Einstein also said. So it's just an important example I want you to remember, saving early, most important thing. So now let's move on to the stock market challenge. So do any of you have any experience with stocks or the stock market previously? A couple of you do? Okay. So a stock is a piece of a business. So when a business begins, it starts out as an idea. Someone has an idea for a product or service that they think will make the world a better place. So it's just simply an idea. So an example of a product is McDonald's. Someone had an idea for a fast food where you could just quickly pick up your food and leave, very cheap, a wide variety of menu items. So the concept for McDonald's was born. Then over here we have Facebook. It's an idea of a service. It's a website where you and I can log on and grow a network of friends, acquaintances, and colleagues. Let's forget about Facebook for a second and focus on McDonald's. So McDonald's began as one restaurant, and then it expanded to 2, and then 3. And basically what happens is, as a business begins to grow, the management may realize that if they had a whole bunch more money, basically they could grow and expand their business much faster. Maybe they could expand into different cities or different countries. Maybe they could purchase other buildings and restaurants, or they could hire top personnel, people to come work for them. But they don't have the money to do this. So what the company will do is the managers will take a portion of the business and they'll sell it to the public in a place called the stock market in order to raise the money to fund this expansion that we just talked about. So they take a portion of the business and they slice it up into millions of little pieces called stocks or shares, and they sell it to the stock market. Now they've raised the money and they can continue to grow and expand. Meanwhile, these stocks are now being traded on this place called the stock market, and you or I and anyone else can go purchase these stocks, and we now own a small fraction of the business. So you own a small piece of every desk, every chair, every wall in that organization you own a small part of, which is really cool. So the stocks are now being traded on the stock market, and it works like this. It's a giant tug of war. So on one side of the tug of war, you have all the people in the world that want to buy a stock on a given day. And on the other end of the tug of war, you have all the people that want to sell it. And so people are selling and people are buying. And basically, whatever side there's more of, that's the way the price moves. So in the game, if you purchase a stock and 2 weeks later you look and it's gone down in price, it means more people in the world since you bought it have sold it. It's as simple as that. So they may have a variety of reasons for buying and selling. There's a great quote from someone named Ben Graham. He's a famous investor in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, 1930s, 40s, 50s. And he said, in the short term, the stock market's a voting machine. In the long term, it's a weighing machine. And what he means by that is in the short term, in the day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year moves of the stock prices, it's more of a voting machine. So people can buy or sell really for any reason. A good reason or a bad reason, it doesn't matter. So the price can move quite a bit. But in the longer term, in 10, 20, 30 years down the road, if the business that the stock represents does well and is successful, then the stock price will do well. And similarly, if the business does poorly, then the stock price will do poorly. So something important to remember, because unfortunately you guys only get 4 months to play the game. So anything can really happen in 4 months. It's the short term, it's the voting machine. The markets could fall, we could all lose money. So I hope you guys don't get discouraged if that happens. You have to remember in real life, what you do when you invest is you're looking for 10, 20, 30 years down the road. You're trying to buy good quality businesses. So someone who really got me involved in investing has that philosophy. And that's someone by the name of Warren Buffett. Do you guys know who he is? So he's the third richest man on the planet. He's worth $60 billion. He's 85 years old, still goes to work every day, manages his company, Berkshire Hathaway. His partner, Charlie Munger, is 92, also goes to work every day, running Berkshire Hathaway. These guys are just brilliant men. And Warren Buffett really got me involved in investing. At the age of 6, I always tell this story, at the age of 6, he grew up in Omaha in the 1930s, and he would go down to his grandpa's corner store, and he would purchase a 6-pack of Pepsi for 25 cents. And he would go sell each individual can to the neighborhood kids for a nickel apiece. So 6 cans times 5 cents is 30 cents. He'd make a nickel profit off the 6-pack. He'd pocket the nickel, and he'd go back and he'd do it again and repeat the process, and he'd save his nickels, which was more back then than it is now. And then he started a paper route, and he realized that he could go start paper routes in different neighborhoods and contract the paper routes out to other neighborhood kids. So he had all these little kids running paper routes for him and paying him a share of the profits. And also him and his friend went and put pinball machines in restaurants. And they would go after hours and collect all the coins because it was a hit. People loved to play the pinball machines. So before the age of 10, he had all these businesses running, and the money he made actually eventually paid for his university, which is pretty cool. But at the age of 11, he borrowed his older sister Doris's money. And together with his own, they bought a few shares in a company called Cities. It was an electric utility company back in the day. And over the next couple of weeks, the stock price fell, and it was down to maybe $27, and his sister would knock on his door every day. Warren, why are we losing money? And he felt sick to his stomach. He was losing his sister's money. So he stuck with it, and he was patient and waited a few weeks, and the stock price crept back up, and it got to about $41. He bought it at 38, and he sold and made a small profit and paid her back the money. He said, whew, he didn't want to lose his sister's money. Well, about 2 months later, the stock price shot up to $200. And he would have made what is a small fortune back in the day. So he learned one of the most valuable lessons in investing, that patience is a virtue when investing. So this began to shape his philosophy and made him one of the most successful, if not the most successful investors of all time. So he now owns a large portion of Coca-Cola. He owns Kellogg's, a large portion of it, IBM. He owns oil and gas companies. He has a huge conglomerate that owns many different businesses. He owns Geico, the commercial you've seen with the little lizard on TV. And he just bought Heinz ketchup a year or two ago for $30 billion. He's been quoted as saying, kids all around the world 50 years ago and 50 years from now will enjoy their Coke with some fries and ketchup. So it's as simple as that. He really buys into businesses that have a purpose and that will be around in the world for a long time. So my recommendation for you guys is, as you're enjoying this game over the course of the semester, start looking in your everyday lives at products and services that have an impact on your life, that matter. So for instance, I always like to say, if you're in the shower, look at the back of your shampoo bottle. I bet you it says Procter & Gamble or Unilever. Those are two of the large consumer staples companies. Or for toothpaste, Colgate-Palmolive. These kind of companies, people are always going to use their products. Cell phone companies, TELUS, Bell, Rogers, those are good businesses. Banks, you guys put your money in banks, those are good businesses. Food companies, Wendy's, McDonald's, there's clothing companies, Nike, Under Armour. So there's all these businesses that have products and services that are used on an everyday basis and will most likely continue to be used over the years. So these are the important businesses to invest in my opinion. But you guys can also have fun. It's up to you how you play the game. You can invest in 3D printer companies or high-flying technology companies. Just be prepared for them to move more, either up or down. So it's really up to you how you want to play the game, but the most important thing that I'd like to share with you is just in real life, you invest in these quality businesses that have these products and services like Warren Buffett invests in that matter to the world. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of context. It's kind of outside the scope of what you guys will be doing this semester, but I thought since I'm here, I should give a couple more examples. So I just wanted to show you what we do for clients. So this is a portfolio. Portfolio is just a collection of investments. So basically, right now, we invest 36% for our clients in US stocks, 16% Canadian stocks, and that's because we see a little bit more growth going forward in the United States. Canada's growing a little slower. There's problems in the oil sands, as you probably know. There's potential housing bubbles in major cities like Vancouver and Toronto, potential. There's some housing debt. There's just some issues in Canada. We see a little bit more growth in the US. So right now, we're weighting a little bit more towards the US, but that could change if the economics changes. For you guys, you're only going to be focusing on US stocks for this game. The reason is if we just did Canadian stocks, you'd miss out on a whole bunch of US companies that you probably know about. So that's no fun. And most Canadian stocks are also listed on the US stock exchanges. So it's the best of both worlds by using just US stocks. That's all you have to worry about. I'm just trying to give a little more context into what we do for clients. So we invest right now 12% in international stocks, Europe, Japan, emerging markets. It's important to diversify. The point of this diagram here is diversification. You've heard the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If we own just 2 stocks for clients and one fell by a bunch, we'd lose them a lot of money. So that's not a good thing. So by owning 30 or 40 different investments, if 5 fall and 35 of them rise, then you've made your clients some money. So diversification is spreading your money out in different industries, different countries, different geographies. It helps reduce risk. So that's international stocks. Then we have 11% alternative investments. So for us, we own agriculture and gold for the moment in there. There's also real estate, private equity. There's other types of alternative investments. But agriculture is self-explanatory. We all eat what's grown from the ground. Farming is very important. Gold is actually used in medication for arthritis. Gold's actually in your cell phones, in your computers. Gold's used in outer space. It's used around the world by many cultures. It's called the love trade. There's medallions and trinkets. People find it very important. Also, central banks hold gold as reserves in case something happens to paper currency or electronic currency. Also, it moves traditionally and historically, it moves opposite of the stock market. So for instance, January markets were falling and gold was rising. So by having a little bit of gold, you offset if markets fall a bit by your gold rising. So it's important to have those different types of positions in a portfolio. 20% we have in bonds. An example of a bond is you lend a company $10,000. In 5 years, they give you your $10,000 back. Each year in between, they give you a small coupon payment of $200 for 5 years. So it's basically like you lend the money, they give you it back, and you get a small payment each year. So it's a good investment to have as a complement to stocks. The only risk is if the company goes bankrupt, then you lose your money. So you have to pick good quality businesses. Again, there's always some risk involved. Otherwise, everyone would do it and just make money. There has to be some risk to make more reward than your traditional bank account. So although there's risk in bonds, if you pick good companies, the risk is very small. Finally, this isn't very drawn to scale. The last position is only 5%, and it's very important. That's cash. You always want to have some cash available. It's called dry powder. You want to be able to purchase investments if you find good opportunities. You don't want to have no cash and have to sell investments to buy other ones. You want to have a little bit of cash available in case you see these opportunities. So again, beyond the scope of the exercise, but it's kind of helpful for you guys to see what we do in our industry for clients. We build these diversified portfolios to help grow their wealth over time. So one more example here. I have 2 more actually, but here's the first one. It's on something called intrinsic value. So the great investors, the Warren Buffetts, Charlie Mungers, Peter Lynch's, Ben Graham's, the guys I'm mentioning, they are a whiz with financial statements. So I don't know if you guys have done accounting courses, but there's the statement of financial position, also known as the balance sheet. There's the income statement, cash flow statement. So these are statements a company has to put out, and it shows the health of the business. So they're able to dissect these statements, and then they're also, that's the quantitative factors, They're also able to look at the qualitative factors. So the human things, like what's the management like? What's the company like? Is there other companies in the industry that could knock that brand off? Things like that. And they come up with a value that they think the stock is worth. So let's say McDonald's, they think the stock's worth $80 after doing their intensive research. Basically, what they'll then try to do is, as the stock moves in the stock market from participants buying and selling, what they try to do is purchase it when it's cheaper than the value they think it is and sell it when it's more expensive in order to make money. So they wouldn't buy on a falling trend like that. It's called catching a falling knife. That's dangerous. They would usually wait until there's some buying support, and maybe they'd buy some there, and they'd buy some there. And then maybe they'd look to sell some when it was way too expensive. That's how they'd make money. Me, for instance, I own 10 shares of McDonald's personally in my account. So I bought it for $80 a share a year or two ago, so I spent $800 on my McDonald's shares. Today, they're worth $120. So I could sell right now and make $400. But in real life, what happens is a company makes money and it pays a small portion of that money to its shareholders as an incentive for them to keep holding the shares. So McDonald's pays a 3% dividend, it's called. So I make about $30 a year from just holding it. It doesn't seem like a lot, but if I own 30 or 40 different stocks, I'm earning $30 or $40 off each of them. And so for me, for instance, I'm probably never going to sell McDonald's unless I think it's going to go away. I think people will always eat it. So I'll maybe just add to it if it gets cheaper. And other than that, I'll just hold on to it and the dividends can keep rolling in. And maybe I would sell it if it's way too expensive. But for now, that's the concept of a dividend. Unfortunately, in the game you're going to play, the website's set up to not pay dividends. So you don't get dividends, which kind of sucks. But just remember, in real life, that's another part of owning stocks, is you get paid this income from the company to continue to own it. So just one thing I want to add here. Some people say that investing in the stock market is kind of like gambling. You guys are probably too young to go to the casino, but if you go to the casino and you play blackjack, you have to do something called an ante. So you have to put money in before you even see your cards. So you put $5 or $10 in, and then you get your cards. If your cards suck, you can't take your money back. Like, your money's already in, and the casino has better odds than you do. So that's gambling. You don't have odds. In investing, you don't have to do anything. You can just study a company for 3 years and do nothing and just wait and try to understand it and analyze it and wait until the market sells it way too cheap, and then you can invest in it. You get to have that decision. You also get paid a dividend. So people that say it's like gambling, they don't really know what they're talking about. There's a more sound process involved in it. Some people speculate, so they just read a cool article and just go buy a company. That's speculating or gambling. But investing, when you have a sound process, is a good process to grow your money over time. So one final example. It's probably the second most important thing I want you guys to take away from today. The first being to start saving now and to develop a financial plan. I have a financial plan in there, like Mr. Ferris said. I'd recommend you guys take out a piece of paper when you go home, that paper, and write down some goals, 1-year goals, 3-year goals, 5-year goals. Maybe you want to save for something in the future, like university or a car. And you can write down just some basic goals in that paper, put it away, reference it from time to time as you grow older, change your goals. That's such an important first step, is setting just a couple basic goals for yourself. So that's the most important thing from this lesson. The second most important is the concept of human behavior. So as a stock rises and falls, humans roughly go through this behavior. You have hope, you have thrill, you have euphoria as you're making money, you have anxiety as you're losing money, fear, despair. It's a little bit messy, sorry guys. Hope, thrill, euphoria, and on as the stock rises and falls. And so studies have shown something called loss aversion. Humans feel losses 2.5 times greater than they feel an equal gain. So if you lose $1,000, you're going to feel that anguish 2.5 times more pronounced than an equal $1,000 gain. And it's something to do with the wiring in our brains and our systems from thousands of years ago, passed down from our ancestors. Imagine when we were cavemen running around in the savannas, like killing wild animals and stuff. It's that fight or flight mentality of survival that's passed along to us still today. So imagine in your everyday life, it serves you well, this fear of survival, but it works exactly against you in financial markets, which is what makes it so tricky. So see, people start to lose money in an investment and they panic and they sell right when it's at its lowest. While over here, people don't own a stock and it's going up and they become greedy and envious. Why aren't I making that money? And so they want to make money like other people are making and they buy right at the top. We've just gone through the fact that you actually want to buy when it's cheap and sell when it's expensive, but our human nature convinces us to sell when it's cheap and buy when it's expensive. So it works exactly opposite to what we're supposed to be doing. So the key message is here that armed with this understanding of human behavior, that's the first step in overcoming it. If we can remember one day when you're investing with your real money, to harness that human behavior and that feeling. If we can say, oh, like I feel panicky, I want to sell, I want to get out. Well, remember how we're feeling. Maybe take a step back, do some extra research, try to understand, why am I feeling this way? Maybe the company is going to go down a whole bunch more and it's time to sell. But a lot of the time, it's our fear that's driving that. So again, armed with this understanding, we can profit from other people's behavior. So if we can see that other people are panicking far more than they should, that's the opportunity to then maybe buy. And if people are greedy and envious, maybe it's time to be a little cautious and sell. Warren Buffett says, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. So it's easy just to talk about and say, but imagine when you're losing money in real life, you'll feel that panic one day. So it's just being cognizant of this behavior in our human instincts, which will allow us to make money in investments one day. So it's a little bit beyond the scope of what you guys are doing again, but hopefully you enjoyed learning a little bit about what I do and what the industry is about. And again, just enjoy yourselves this semester, hopefully learn a thing or two. And my email is attached, and Mr. Ferris has my email. I really recommend you guys, if you have any interest in this, to reach out and chat with me about it. I always had mentors older than me that I was asking questions to, and they really helped me. So by all means, reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer anything you have. And also, if you have any questions about graduating in the next step or anything, it's always helpful to talk to someone who's been there and done it before. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. Do you have any questions? Any questions? No? Okay, thanks guys. Appreciate it.